On Staten Island, the legend of Cropsey has never faded. They say he prowls the dense forests and abandoned sewer tunnels where the darkness never recedes. Towering, lurching, and armed with a rusted blade, he stalks the unlucky who dare to enter. Old toys, childish sketches, and pale, staring eyes hidden deep in the shadows are all that remain of those who vanish. And anyone who hears the scrape of metal dragging across the night never returns. Wait, you'll be all. The dirt road that cut into the depths of Staten Island's forest had long since been reduced to a faint scar beneath the weeds. Branches clawed at jackets as the group of 4 teenagers pushed forward, each scratch leaving pale marks like ghostly warnings. The fading afternoon light bled weakly through the canopy, falling in sickly patches across their path, as if the forest itself whispered that they should turn back. Willowbrook Camp revealed itself after a bend in the trail. Rows of sagging cabins with collapsed roofs and walls that peeled like rotting skin. The playground at the entrance stood frozen in silence, where a rusted swing swayed lazily, creaking in the breeze with a sound too hollow, too human. Nearby, a warped steel slide jutted upward, its base sunken deep into damp soil, like the headstone of a childhood long buried. Inside the first cabin, dust hung so thick that every step sent clouds rising like pale smoke. Broken bunk beds lay scattered in heaps, their frames twisted. In the corner slumped a gutted teddy bear, stuffing spilling from its torn belly like an unhealed wound. On the stained wall, faint crayon drawings still lingered, childish stick figures holding hands beneath the looming shadow of something impossibly tall. The children said nothing, but their eyes clung to every fragment left behind. One boy picked up a tiny tricycle, its rusted wheels squealing with each turn. The sound echoed through the hollow cabin, absurdly small, yet unbearably heavy, as if carried from a past that refused to rest. The sun dipped lower, smothered by the tree line, and shadows swallowed the camp. The air thickened, damp and cold, seeping into lungs until each breath felt stolen. From somewhere distant, a crow shrieked, a harsh, broken cry, then went silent, leaving a suffocating stillness. One of the teens tugged open the warped door of the storage shed. The stench of mildew rolled out to greet them. Piled inside were forgotten relics of play. Dolls with fractured faces, toy trucks missing wheels, a child's cap stained with a dark rust-red bloom. On a crooked wooden shelf leaned a stack of photographs, their images blurred by time. The children leaned closer. Each picture showed camp kids lined up in uniform, smiling with mouths too stiff, eyes too empty. A gust of wind slipped through the cracked boards, making the photos quiver. For a moment, it seemed as though the entire camp exhaled, heavy and tired. And in that instant, the intruders understood. They were not the first to wander here in decades. Something had remained. Something that watched, patient and hungry, from just beyond the dark. Night had swallowed Staten Island's woods whole, pressing darkness against every breath. The teenagers moved with flashlights in hand, their beams slicing thin arcs across the ruins of an abandoned bathhouse on the camp's edge. Hinges groaned as a sagging wooden door surrendered, opening into a chamber that reeked of mold and stagnant air. Broken tiles glistened with pools of black water, each reflecting the wavering light like liquid mirrors. On the peeling walls, crude chalk scrawls spread in tangled clusters, dozens of small figures drawn hand in hand, circling a towering shape with arms that scraped the ground. Its face was nothing more than a hollow smear of darkness. The group froze, beams quivering as they swept across the room. Every wall bore the same tableau. Children gathered at the side of a looming skeletal giant. By the sinks, dark stains had dried into the concrete, trailing downward like veins of rust. They clung stubbornly, cracked into the floor as if time itself had tried and failed to erase them. The air shifted as a cold gust slithered in, carrying with it the sour stench of damp fabric, burnt plastic, and something far more rotten. In one corner lay a discarded Polaroid camera, its body choked with dust. One of the kids lifted it, finding a few photos wedged inside. Under the flashlight's glare, faces emerged, children smiling with distorted mouths, eyes empty sockets of pale gray. In one photo, behind the group of children, something massive loomed. Its outline was blurred, wrong, as though it had bled into the picture from another world. Then came a sound, soft at first, leaking upward through the pipes beneath the floor. A hiss, faint but alive, shifting into something higher, sharper. Laughter. A chorus of giggles rising and falling, echoing as if dozens of unseen children were playing just beneath their feet. The tiles trembled. Ripples spread across the stagnant puddles. The teenagers stared at one another, wide-eyed and mute. A flashlight beam swept toward the far end of the corridor. There, fresh chalk marks gleamed brighter than the others, drawn with unsettling clarity. And pressed into the dust beside them was a tiny handprint, wet, glistening, impossibly recent. The room fell silent, as though holding its breath. No wind, no birds, no sound but the hammering of their own hearts. And then it came, rising from the bowels of the tunnels below, the scrape of metal, dragging slow and heavy, rattling through the brick walls, announcing something that had already begun to move. That dragging metal sound pulsed again and again, steady as a death beat beneath the earth. The teenagers tried to pull away from the bathhouse, but their steps betrayed them, drifting toward the direction of the noise, as though something unseen guided their feet. Wind shrieked through the shattered slats, tilting flashlight beams into fractured arcs, illuminating shadows that seemed to close tighter with every step. Behind the rotting cabins they found it, a sewer hatch left slightly ajar. From the gap rose a chill so sharp it felt like ice in their lungs, carrying the rancid stench of carrion rotting in mud. The iron cover was streaked with rust, and below it yawned a ladder that vanished into endless dark. They shone their lights downward. The walls gleamed wet, veined with moss, every drip echoing like a clock tick counting down. Small handprints smeared the slick surface, layer upon layer of tiny palms, as if children had climbed down one after another. Some were fresh, wet enough that water still trickled in thin rivulets. One of them, braver or more foolish than the rest, set a foot on the ladder. The rungs groaned with a metallic scream under the weight. One by one, the others followed, swallowed into the dark. With every step deeper, the sound grew louder, not distant anymore, but crawling close. The deliberate scrape of something immense dragging its blade. It moved slowly, arrogantly, as though certain that prey could never escape. The tunnels stretched before them, endless and waterlogged. Stagnant pools lapped at their ankles, stinking of rust and mold. Abandoned relics littered the sludge, the bent frame of a stroller, a child's shoe gnawed apart, the headless remains of stuffed animals drifting like corpses. When the flashlights swept the walls, the chalk drawings appeared again. This time sharper, crueler, children with eyes washed white, clutching hands around a bent, towering figure whose grasp held a scythe. The whispers returned, clearer now, flitting through the tunnel like breath against their ears. High-pitched giggles swelled and faded, skipping from wall to wall, circling them, crawling under their skin. The water rippled, though nothing moved. Then the beam of a flashlight swept forward and froze. At the tunnel's end, a shape stood motionless. Too tall, shoulders hunched, head canted, unnaturally to the side. Arms dangled near the ground, one fist clutching a wide, corroded blade. The steel's tip scraped across the concrete with a shriek that shivered the air. The light trembled over his face, blurred flesh, mottled and uneven, as if dragged too far across bone. A face without balance, without mercy. And from the hollow sockets of his eyes, twin glints flared back like a predator's in the night. The teenagers froze, breaths caught, hearts hammered against ribs like prisoners against walls. And then, as though the light itself had awakened him, the figure moved, lurching, limping, yet impossibly quick. The scythe shrieked louder, grinding against concrete, the sound swelling until it rattled the walls. Water splashed violently with each heavy step, as if the entire tunnel were gasping, choking in rhythm with his approach. A scream tore loose, shattering the silence. Panic surged, and the group bolted, flashlights scattering wild beams across the dripping walls. Behind them, the dragging blade struck harder, faster, echoing through the cavern. And woven through the metallic shrieks was laughter. Thin, cruel laughter in many voices, the laughter of children long broken. Footsteps thundered behind them, heavy and relentless, each one reverberating through the marrow of their bones. The teenagers stumbled through the twisting tunnels, flashlights flaring wildly against the walls. The chalk drawings multiplied with every turn, little figures grinning with mouths stretched too wide, while the looming, hunched giant grew larger, swallowing entire walls, as if the tunnel itself was painting the hunter that stalked them. Filthy water splashed cold against their legs, sharp as ice. From the cracks above, the wind hissed, but tangled in the draught came whispers. Children's voices. Don't run. Stay. Come play with us. The words spiraled through the corridor, impossible to trace, near and far, all at once. Suddenly, one of them slipped. A flashlight clattered across the flooded floor, spinning, then landing with its beam locked onto the tunnel's far end. He was there. Tall, skeletal shoulders twisted, one arm dangling lower than the other. The scythe scraped the ground with a metallic groan, each drag louder than breath. The group shrieked, scrambling to their feet, but it was too late. Cropsey lunged forward. A long arm swung, the blade slicing through the dark. No blood, no spray. Only the hollow scream of steel cleaving air. The light flickered, died, then surged back. One of them was gone. Only a torn backpack bobbed in the filthy water. Panic tore through the survivors. They bolted deeper, yet the tunnel coiled endlessly, stretching like a labyrinth with no exit. Every corner they turned, cold wind rushed from ahead, carrying shrill giggles that echoed like knives. On the walls, the handprints smeared thicker, wetter, as though pressed fresh by unseen palms. A flashlight beam veered right into a circular chamber. Its domed ceiling dripped with condensation, and scattered chairs lay broken in heaps. Shredded stuffed animals slumped in corners, while crooked frames dangled from the walls. At the room's center, a long table stood beneath a rotting green cloth, set with broken plates and children's toys arranged like offerings. The group stopped, gasping. The air felt swollen, pressing against their lungs. The room was waiting. Then, from behind the table, he emerged. Cropsey, Ma. No longer a shadow. Whole. His body warped, his face sagging like wax melting under flame. Deep sockets burned with a feral gleam, catching the flashlight's jittering beams. In his grasp, the scythe tilted, its blade mottled with rust and streaks of dried red. He moved closer, halting, deliberate, confident. The way a predator closes the space when it knows the corner has already been sealed. Each step struck like a drumbeat inside their chests. The air chilled, thickened, suffocating. They backed against the wall, slick with moss, nowhere left to run. Then, all at once, the picture frames fell. Glass shattered across the floor. From behind the broken panes, children's faces stared out. Eyes rolled white, mouths split into jagged grins. The voices came next, hundreds of them, threading directly into their skulls. Sit down. The feast is ready. The flashlights flickered, then died. The chamber collapsed into absolute dark. And in that void, only one sound remained. The long, deliberate sweep of a scythe, sliding across concrete. Slow, certain, inescapable. Nyani. The blackness swallowed the entire chamber, so thick it weighed down every breath. There was no light anymore. Only the steady drip of water, the frantic thump of hearts, and above all the unending scrape of a scythe dragged across concrete. One of them screamed, flicking a lighter to life. The tiny flame stuttered, casting a trembling glow over Cropsey's face, just inches away. Flesh sagged like melted wax, one socket hollow, the other gleaming with a feral yellow spark. His breath stank of rust and rot, the stench of blood clinging to every exhale. The scythe swung. A scream was cut short. The flame snuffed out. Silence, then the splash of water, as though the tunnel had just swallowed another soul whole. The survivors staggered forward, plunging deeper into the maze. But the tunnels weren't the same anymore. The paths twisted endlessly, corridors folding into each other like a nightmare with no escape. Every footstep echoed unnaturally long, as though the ground itself refused to carry them closer to safety. Behind them, the dragging steel sang on the concrete, sometimes distant, sometimes right at their heels. Cropsey was playing. Another stumbled, their flashlight tumbling into the water. Its glow flickered just enough to reveal the figures. Rows of children standing shoulder to shoulder in the tunnel. Faces chalk white, eyes hollow, mouths cracked into rigid smiles. Tiny hands reached out, whispering, "Stay with us." When Cropsey stepped forward, the children's shapes melted into him, their pale faces vanishing into the grotesque swell of his form. His arm lifted. Another body was gone. At last, only one remained. Breath ragged, eyes wide with hopeless terror, they ran on and on. Then, light, a faint glimmer ahead. An open manhole cover, spilling the glow of street lamps into the dark. The survivor clawed their way toward it, trembling fingers curling over the icy rung of the ladder. But the darkness thickened behind them, pressing close, heavy with the stench of rust and decay. A hand, long, deformed, skin hanging loose, closed over their shoulder. Cold breath, brushed their ear. For the briefest moment, they looked up and saw safety just above. A police cruiser rolling by, red and blue lights painting across the manhole's lip. They tried to scream, but no sound came. The scythe fell. Darkness sealed shut. Above ground, Staten Island lay quiet beneath the night sky. No one knew what had happened below, where children's laughter echoed once more, mingling with the scrape of steel on concrete. And the legend of Cropsey had never ended. I know. In 1912, the Moore family and 2 young guests were murdered in their sleep, each struck down by the swing of an axe inside a small white house in Villisca, Iowa. The killer was never found. What remained was not just a crime, but a wound, a scar pressed into the town's history, stretching across more than a century. The locals whisper that when night falls, the house replays its sorrow. The echo of steel still thuds against unseen wood. Doors drift open as if nudged by invisible hands. Beds tremble faintly, as though reliving the last moments of breath and fear. And when a documentary filmmaker arrives, determined to spend the night within those walls and capture the truth, his camera lens will become more than a tool. It will serve as a third eye, one that does not blink, one that stares into the dark, and one that will learn that some things should never be seen. The road into Villisca was narrow and hushed, flanked on either side by endless fields of withered corn. Daniel Ross drove a battered pickup truck, the back weighed down with cameras, tripods, and a scattering of flashlights. On the seat beside him rested a worn notebook, its pages filled edge to edge with cramped handwriting, the Moore case, 1912. For months, he had studied the story, consuming court transcripts, yellowed newspaper clippings, and whispered folklore. Tonight would be the first time he came face to face with it. The house revealed itself after a sagging wooden fence, small, steep-roofed, its once white paint dulled to the color of ash. No lamps glowed in its windows, no voices stirred from within. Only the wind slipped through the cracks, coaxing from the boards a faint and mournful groan. Daniel stopped the truck. His heart thudded in his chest, faster than he expected. He had prepared himself for silence, but the air here was different. Denser, heavy, as if an invisible curtain hung over the property, sealing it off from the ordinary world. Inside, the floorboards complained beneath his every step. The furniture was plain: an oak dining table, a rocking chair, a few black and white photographs framed on the walls. What unsettled Daniel most was not what he saw, but how untouched it all seemed. The house did not feel like a relic in a museum. It felt like a home that had been left yesterday, the air still holding the echo of lives, abruptly cut short. He unpacked his gear with mechanical precision, placing the main camera in the living room and setting up a second at the narrow hallway leading upstairs. His voice, captured by the microphone, trembled ever so slightly, roughened by tension. This is the house where the Moore family took their final sleep. On the night of June 10th, 1912, a stranger entered with an axe. 8 souls were taken, and the killer vanished. No one ever knew his name. Since then, this house has never truly been silent. Daniel lowered himself onto the bed in the downstairs room. From there, he stared through the window into the black beyond. In his mind's eye, a different image took shape. 8 still forms stretched beneath sheets, the night itself wrapped tight around the intruder like a cloak. He shivered. He reminded himself he was here only to film, to capture evidence, to record what folklore could not. Yet, no matter how he repeated it, a gnawing certainty lingered. The house was listening. Every word he spoke was sinking into its walls, acknowledged by something unseen. Then it came. A sharp click. From above. It could have been the wind. It could have been the shift of old wood. But it might have been something else. Daniel raised his head, forcing a smile at the lens. Seems we're not alone. His hand tightened on the camera as he adjusted the angle, trying to disguise the pressure coiling tighter in his chest. The night had only begun, and Villisca was already whispering. And whispers have a way of becoming louder. Now, night fell quickly in Villisca. By the time the clock drifted past midnight, the little wooden house seemed swallowed whole by a mass of suffocating darkness. Daniel sat in the living room, his gaze fixed on the glow of his laptop screen, where the cameras streamed their silent vigil. A flashlight rested beside him, the microphone remained live, but the silence pressed down so thickly that each second seemed to crawl. The first sound came from the staircase, a single, deliberate creak. Daniel flinched, swiveling the camera toward the source. Only blackness stared back at him, that hollow place where the hallway bulb had burned out long ago. He swallowed hard, forcing himself to believe it was nothing more than wood groaning in the cold. But then, another sound split the stillness. Thud. Dot. Measured, heavy, unmistakable, like something weighty settling against the floorboards. No longer random, but purposeful. A rhythm, deliberate and slow, as though someone unseen was walking on the second floor. Daniel's breath hitched. He lifted the flashlight and handheld camera, forcing himself up the narrow stairs. His light skimmed the walls, revealing cracks that spread like veins through plaster. The air grew thick with the damp, sour scent of rot. Halfway up, he froze. Whoosh! The sharp, metallic hiss of an axe cutting through air, striking nowhere. The sound cleaved through the dark, chilling him to the marrow. He swept the flashlight wildly across the staircase, pulse hammering in his ears. Nothing. Only warped wood and the gaping emptiness above. But the camera was still running, and the microphone had captured what he prayed was only an echo. He forced himself upward. The bedrooms emerged at the landing, simple yet oppressive. A naked bulb dangled from the ceiling, long dead, swaying faintly as if stirred by a breath. Daniel positioned the camera toward one of the beds, the narrow frame where the Moore children had once slept. Then the bed shuddered. At first, the tremor was subtle, like the faint ripple of someone shifting beneath the sheets. But it grew sharper, rattling the wooden frame until it whined in a high, piercing shriek. Daniel thrust the beam of his flashlight forward. The mattress was bare. No one lay there. Cold sweat traced his temples as he stumbled back. A droplet struck the camera lens. He blinked, frowning, and reached out with his hand. Sticky, dark, thick. Blood. Daniel lifted his eyes. Across the ceiling, pale plaster was darkening. Thin rivulets seeped downward, spreading, multiplying, until they formed red, gleaming stains. They fell in droplets that pattered against the floorboards, slowly shaping themselves into something grim, the inverted outline of an axe head looming above him. His chest rose and fell in short, frantic bursts. He backed toward the doorway, but before he reached it, the door slammed shut with a booming finality. The sound reverberated through the entire house, like a groan of wood and bone. He was trapped. The darkness seemed to thicken, pressing closer. And then the axe returned. Not visible, not wielded by any hand he could see, but its sound filled the room. Each phantom strike rang out as though it split the air inches from his body. Blow after blow, relentless, invisible, seeking him. The camera shook in his hands, capturing every tremor, every gasp, every unholy echo. And in that instant, Daniel understood. He was not merely documenting a haunted house. He was being written into its story. The hour, day. The room felt suffocating, as if the very air had thickened to stone. Daniel pressed his back against the wall, his camera trembling in rhythm with his heartbeat. Above him, the ceiling continued to bleed, each drop of dark red falling to the floor and spreading outward into long, thin streaks. Trails that began to resemble footprints, pacing slowly across the boards. The flashlight sputtered twice, then died. Darkness rushed in, swallowing the room whole. The only glow left was the frail beam from the camera, casting a pale reflection across Daniel's terrified face. His own eyes stared back at him, wide and frantic, trapped in that sickly light. Then the sound returned. Whoosh! Whoosh! The stroke of an axe splitting the air, closer now, whispering past his ear. The atmosphere itself seemed torn apart, though no wood splintered, no blade struck. The room remained bare, empty yet charged with a violence that pressed against his skin. Desperate, Daniel swept the camera from side to side, searching for proof, for anything solid. And for a moment, he saw it. A shadow. Tall, blurred, and indistinct. One arm hung at its side, the other clutched something long. The shape unmistakable, the haft of an axe. But when he lowered the camera, the figure was gone. Only blackness and silence remained. A sharp crackle burst from the equipment. Downstairs, the laptop screen flickered, its live feed sputtering. The picture stabilized and revealed the staircase. Someone was standing there. Not him. A stretched silhouette, hunched slightly forward, arms dangling, head tilted as though broken. Where its eyes should have been were only two cavernous hollows, pits of unbroken dark. Cold dread swept through Daniel. He lunged for the bedroom door, twisting the knob with frantic force. To his shock, it yielded instantly, swinging open without resistance. The hallway yawned before him, lightless, cold wind rushing through as if to beckon him deeper into the house lungs. He descended the stairs, each step echoing, each echo pursued by another. Behind him, the tread of footsteps followed, slow, heavy, relentless. He did not dare turn, for he already knew something was walking in his shadow. He burst into the living room. The laptop still glowed, recording faithfully. The feed flickered once more, and then the camera turned its gaze back upon him. But he was not alone in the frame. Behind him, stark and undeniable, loomed a hand, slick with blood, clutching an axe that dripped in steady rhythm to the floor. Daniel spun around, heart pounding. The room was empty. Only the rocking chair moved, swaying gently back and forth, creaking as though someone had just risen from it. Cold sweat drenched him. He backed into the corner, the handheld camera still rolling, still capturing every shallow breath that rattled in his chest. Each exhale sounded wrong, almost as if it belonged not to him, but to someone who had once struggled for air on these very floorboards. And then the sound changed. The axe no longer sang through the air. It struck inward, not against wood or walls, but against his mind. A voice, blunt and cold, whispered like iron against his skull. 8, then 9. Daniel's stomach dropped, his vision blurred. And with that, he understood. In this house, the number had never stopped at 8. Ani, se, ki, isi wow. Daniel tried to stagger out of the living room, but his legs felt leaden, as though nailed to the freezing floorboards. The house itself seemed to breathe, ragged and uneven, every crack in the wood groaning like something alive and mourning. On the laptop screen, the feed stuttered, then froze. The image that remained was hazy, indistinct. 4 small beds lined in a row, and upon them, the silhouettes of children lying motionless. Daniel's breath caught. He edged forward, trembling. Whoosh! The air split open. An axe stroke, sharp and merciless, cut through the silence. For a split second, there was a flare of light, and Daniel felt death sweep across his skin. A cold sting seared his cheek. Blood welled. Though no figure stood before him, he knew the blade had missed by inches. The axe was here, whether his eyes could see it or not. The house shuddered. From the hallway, something emerged. A shape. Tall, slow, heavy. Its face blurred and indistinct, shifting like smoke. But its hand was solid, terrible. Gripping an axe slick with fresh blood, gleaming wet in the camera's eye. Daniel stumbled backward, breath sharp and ragged, but the lens in his shaking hands betrayed him, framing the figure perfectly, capturing each deliberate step. Then came the whispers. Children's voices, soft, fractured, circling him from every corner. Don't let him swing again. Don't let him swing again. The plea rose, dozens of tiny voices merging into one mournful chorus, a choir of the lost. Daniel tilted his head upward, panic overtaking reason. Too late. The axe fell. This time, it was no illusion. White, hot pain exploded through his shoulder, ripping down his arm. His body convulsed. He collapsed, the camera clattering to the ground, its lens splintering but still recording, still watching. Through the cracked glass, the final image bled into focus. The hollow gaze of the Villisca killer. Eyes that had not blinked in over a century stared straight into the lens. Empty, endless, saturated with hate. And then the frame shuddered, as though the house itself exhaled, satisfied. Villisca had claimed another soul. Inemunda. Morning broke over Villisca, pale and indifferent. The house stood exactly as it had the night before. Doors locked, windows shuttered, its silence unbroken. Inside, a flashlight lay forgotten in the corner. The camera shattered on the floor. The laptop still glowed faintly, its sickly blue light flickering like a dying heartbeat. But Daniel was gone. No blood. No footprints. No trace of departure. As if he had never existed at all. Yet, on the fractured memory card of the camera, one recording remained. The footage was jittery, warped through a cracked lens, but clear enough to freeze the breath of anyone who dared watch it. Daniel's screams tore through the static. The camera tumbled, the image splintered, and in that broken frame, through the jagged fissure of glass, a figure stood. The man with the axe. Eyes hollow. Blade dripping. Towering silently behind Daniel, as though it had always been there. The final swing echoed. Then, blackness. No one could explain the tape. Some dismissed it as a hoax. Others swore it was genuine, too raw, too vicious to be fabricated. But the question that lingered was never about the video. It was about Daniel. He had vanished without a trace, as though the house had swallowed him whole. And so the axe house in Villisca remained. Its wooden bones still seeped the metallic stench of rust and blood. Its rooms whispered faintly when night pressed close, restless and unquiet. And when the wind slid through the cracks in its doors, townsfolk swore they heard the thud of an axe falling, each strike echoing from the past, each one still unfinished. No one stayed after sundown. But the house was never done. It waited, patient, hungry, for the next curious soul to step inside, press record, and add their screams to the story that began in 1912, a story the house has never stopped writing. Limping das. In Adams, Tennessee, the legend of the Bell Witch has never faded. In the early 1800s, the Bell family was tormented by knocks on the door, disembodied voices and horrors so relentless that even President Andrew Jackson came to witness them. More than a century later, a young family moved into the old house, convinced it was nothing more than superstition. But when night falls, the knocking returns, cold, deliberate, uninvited, and a lullaby drifts from an empty room, a reminder that the curse has never loosened its grip. The dirt road into the outskirts of Adams was blanketed with brittle leaves and the damp rot of autumn. Behind the wheel, Nathan fixed his gaze on the house that slowly emerged through the oak trees. Beside him, Claire tightened her grip on his hand, while Emma, their young daughter, dozed in the back seat, clutching her warm-knitted doll like a talisman. The house appeared in fragments, then whole, an oppressive silhouette against the dying light. 2 stories of weathered grey wood leaned under a moss-cloaked roof. Its windows, dark and unblinking, resembled hollow sockets in a skull. Though the place had been given a thin coat of repair, it exuded a coldness, a refusal to welcome daylight. Nathan forced a smile, telling himself that the spacious rooms and bargain price made this the perfect beginning for their family. The only neighbor they encountered was a frail old man at the fence line. He paused, his eyes following them with a weary caution. When he finally spoke, it was almost a whisper. "The Bell House never rests." And then he turned away, leaving Nathan bewildered yet eager to dismiss the warning. Claire, however, had heard every word. Her face tightened, though she masked it quickly, unwilling to spread her unease. That evening, they shared their first meal in the wide, draft-ridden parlor. The old oil lamp sputtered, casting a sickly amber glow. From the wall, a portrait loomed. An austere man with cavernous eyes. Emma kept glancing at it, whispering that he doesn't want me sitting here. Claire soothed her gently, chalking it up to childish imagination, though her own skin prickled beneath the gaze of that painted stare. When Emma finally drifted into sleep, Nathan and Claire noticed the sounds. At first faint, then deliberate, 3 measured knocks, steady as a heartbeat, echoing through the bedroom wall. Nathan laughed it off, muttering something about pipes. But Claire remained awake, her eyes fixed on the dark ceiling. To her, the rhythm felt less like plumbing and more like a signal, someone knocking patiently from the other side. From the hallway, the wind pressed through the cracks of the doorframe, carrying with it the sharp, earthy scent of soil freshly turned, damp and ancient. The house, silent to the ear, seemed to murmur in its own secret tongue. The new Bell family had come seeking peace. Instead, they had stepped into the echo of a curse that had never truly died. Nash. Oh no. The second night passed, and the knocking returned. This time, it was no longer scattered. 3 sharp knocks in succession, then silence, only to begin again, steady, deliberate, like a hand tapping with patient insistence on the walls themselves. Claire stirred awake, her body stiff with unease. Nathan still slept deeply, but she knew at once these were not pipes, not branches scraping the roof. The sound carried a weight that seemed to rise from inside the house itself. Slipping from bed, she crept down the hallway. The house was a cavern of shadow, moonlight spilling weakly through dust-streaked windows. As she neared Emma's room, Claire froze, heart pounding. From within came a lullaby. A woman's voice, soft, steady, humming a tune worn thin by time. The melody was slow, trembling, soaked in the drawl of the Old South. The bedroom door stood ajar. Claire pushed it open an inch and saw Emma sound asleep, clutching her ragged doll to her chest. The child's lips were still. Yet the lullaby continued, rising from the empty rocking chair by the window. Claire slammed the door shut, clutching her chest, and did not dare close her eyes again until morning. By dawn, Nathan was too busy unpacking to notice the hollows under her eyes. He only laughed, insisting she was letting the house get to her. But when Claire carried breakfast to the table, her blood ran cold. The rocking chair in Emma's room, no longer in its corner, now faced the bed directly, as though someone had sat there all night, watching. The day brought no comfort. Picture frames slid from walls without a draft. A chair swayed gently, though the floor was still. And Emma, while playing alone, whispered to her mother that she had seen a lady in a white dress step through the bathroom mirror. Claire steadied her voice and asked if the woman had a face. Emma shook her head. No, she never turns around. That evening, Nathan finally saw what Claire feared. As he sat reading in the parlor, the window burst open, though the night outside was breathless and still. A gust of cold air tore through, flinging the book from his hands. And in that fleeting moment, as he bent to retrieve it, he swore he saw her. A pale figure in a long white dress, hair falling like a curtain, gliding across the mirror's surface before vanishing with the blink of an eye. That night, the lullaby returned. Its ghostly cadence swelled through every room, wrapping around them like a shroud. Nathan gathered his wife and daughter close, straining to appear unshaken. Yet in the pit of his stomach, the old man's words returned. The Bell House is never at rest. And when the clock struck 12, The knocking began again. 3 heavy raps, not from the walls this time, but from the bedroom door itself. Someone, unseen, was waiting patiently in the hallway, asking to be let inside. Nah, wow. In the days that followed, the Bell family home offered Nathan's household not a single moment of peace. The knocking grew constant, echoing at all hours, sometimes frantic, sometimes measured, like an unseen hand drumming out its own deliberate rhythm. Claire bore the brunt of it. One evening, while preparing dinner, she heard a faint whisper right behind her. A woman's voice, fragile, repeating her name again and again and again. She spun around, nothing but the empty kitchen. Yet the mirror above the sink had gone cloudy, the glass fogged as though someone had breathed against it. And in its surface she did not see herself, but a woman in a white dress, standing motionless, hair spilling forward to hide her face. Claire screamed, dropping the fork from her hand. The clatter brought Nathan running, but by the time he arrived, the mirror was clear again. He tried to soothe her, though his own nerves betrayed him. The air in the house seemed heavier now, thick with the weight of unseen eyes. Emma, however, treated the presence as if it were something natural. She told her father that the lady only walks through the mirrors, she doesn't hurt anyone. Then she added a detail that made Nathan's blood run cold. She keeps calling my name, really soft, like she's trying to sing me to sleep. On the 5th night, the haunting came for Nathan himself. He dreamed of the house as it had stood in the 1800s. Riders on horseback gathered outside, one of them a man whose face he recognized from history books, President Andrew Jackson. The man's voice cracked like thunder in the dream. You cannot escape. The Bell Witch has never left. Nathan woke with a jolt, drenched in sweat. And at once, 3 sharp knocks reverberated through the wall beside his bed. The next morning, shaken, he went to the town library. He dug through brittle clippings and fading records, piecing together the old legend, the mysterious knocks, the disembodied voices, objects hurled across rooms, sudden deaths. There it was in ink. Andrew Jackson had indeed come to this house, but fled after a single night, declaring it too cursed even for him. Nathan carried the papers home, spreading them across the table. Claire paled as she read, while Emma traced her small fingers across photographs of the old Bell home. That was when the mirror in the parlor rattled violently, a sharp crack splitting the silence. They all turned. The glass shivered, misting over, and a sentence scrawled itself in crooked strokes, as though carved by a finger no one could see. I never left. No one dared breathe a word. The silence pressed down, broken only by the pounding of their own hearts. And then she appeared again. The woman in white drifted across the mirror's surface, visible to all 3 at once. Her face remained hidden, but her presence swept through the room like a frost. Only then did the family understand. They were not merely living in an old house. They had stepped directly into the heart of a curse, and the way out was already beginning to close. Ow! The nightmares had bled from history into the present. Night after night, the Bell house grew heavier with dread. At sunset, the air turned unnaturally cold. Breath rose in clouds. Knocks rolled along the walls, mingling with whispers that made no sense in any human tongue. Nathan fought to keep calm. He locked every window, checked every room, but nothing stopped it. Claire was wasting away, her face hollow, eyes bruised from sleepless nights. She no longer only heard the lullaby. Now she felt a frozen hand settle on her shoulder whenever she stood alone in the kitchen. She would spin around and find nothing, only the wooden chair, always turned toward her, as if someone had been sitting there all along. One night, Emma woke in tears. She pointed at the bedroom mirror, sobbing. "She's looking at me, she's in the mirror, but her eyes are sewn shut." Claire rushed to hold her daughter, but when she lifted her gaze to the glass, she saw it too. The pale face of the woman in white, her eyes crudely stitched with black thread, her mouth stretched open, as though to swallow every sound in the room. Nathan, panicked, yanked the blanket from the bed and covered the mirror. But the moment he did, the lullaby rose again, this time right at his ear. The melody twisted, warping into a broken hymn, layered with the faint cries of children. A crushing weight pressed down on his chest, stealing his breath, until Claire's frantic screams of his name shattered the grip. At dawn, they resolved to take Emma away, to stay with friends in town. But at the door, the child collapsed into terrified sobs. "She won't let me leave!" Every door seized shut at once, unmoving even under Nathan's desperate force. The lights flickered, then died, plunging the house into pitch darkness. From the hallway came footsteps, bare feet, measured, steady, drawing closer. Nathan pulled Claire and Emma tight against him, but from the mirror in the parlor, still shrouded in the blanket, came a piercing crack. Glass split open, not to reveal wood beneath, but a hollow yawning dark, like the mouth of a gate. From within poured the lullaby, clearer, louder, layered in a chorus of voices. Dozens of them, women's voices, some young, some ancient, each intoning the names of the Bell family across the generations. Emma's gaze locked onto the fracture. Her body trembled as though pulled forward. Claire clutched her tighter, sobbing, while Nathan tried to drag them away. But his legs had grown heavy, as if the house itself was rooting him to the floor. And in that moment, Nathan understood. This was not the work of a single spirit. They were ensnared in an inheritance of evil, a legacy stretching back to the 19th century. What the Bell family once endured was now reborn, binding them to a curse that had never been broken. That night, as the moon hung pale above the window, the Bell house was no longer a home. It had become a ritual made flesh, where past and present bled into one, and at the center stood Emma, the child whom the voices longed to claim. Kneel bow. The final night began with silence. No knocking, no whispers, only a suffocating stillness draped over the Bell house. Nathan felt his skin crawl. This was no peace. It was the storm crouching low, waiting to break. Emma slept fitfully in her mother's arms. Claire tried to lull her with a soft song, her voice trembling. But halfway through, horror struck her. It was not her lullaby. It was the lullaby, the same dreadful tune that had haunted their nights. The melody wasn't hers. It was being forced through her throat. She stopped at once, clutching Emma tighter, her breath caught in fear. In the darkness, the cracked mirror in the parlor began to split further. New fractures webbed across its surface, glowing faintly like congealed blood. The blanket Nathan had draped over it tore away, flung aside as if ripped by an unseen hand. Nathan charged forward, seized a chair, and hurled it at the mirror. But instead of shattering, The glass swallowed it whole. The chair vanished into the black, leaving not even the sound of impact. From within, a lullaby swelled, clear, harmonious, sung in both a woman's voice and a child's. Emma's eyes snapped open, glassy and vacant. She whispered, "She's calling me." Claire sobbed, clutching her tighter. But a freezing wind surged out of the mirror, whipping their hair, numbing their skin. Nathan wrapped his arms around them both, trying to pull away. But Emma fought violently, with a strength that no child should possess. In the chaos, Claire's grip slipped. Emma broke free. The little girl walked toward the mirror, calm as though stepping into an embrace. Nathan lunged after her, screaming until his voice tore, but he caught only the hem of her dress before her small body passed through the fissure of light. And then, silence. The lullaby ceased. Emma was gone. The mirror sealed itself, the cracks knitting closed until only a flawless pane remained. It reflected back the hollow, broken faces of Nathan and Claire, two parents staring at the space where their daughter had stood. By morning, the police arrived. They found no evidence of intrusion, no forced doors, no broken windows. The house lay quiet, as though nothing had ever happened. Emma was simply gone, leaving Nathan and Claire shattered in their grief. In her bedroom, on the small bed, lay the knitted doll. Its button eyes had been stitched shut with black thread, the work precise, deliberate, like the final act of some invisible hand completing a ritual. And so, in Adams, Tennessee, the curse of the Bell Witch never ended. It only waited for the foolish, for the hopeful, to step inside and feed it anew with fresh souls. Pow!